Why did Raskolnikov commit a murder? Rodion Raskolnikov was a student who had been in an oppressive environment for a long time. He didn't have enough money to continue his studies at university and provide for himself. He could have improved his living conditions, but it would have required patience and humility of him. Unfortunately, he lacked such virtues. We don't know exactly the reason for this. Maybe because he had been brought up by the mother who had always considered him as a great person with bright abilities and a brilliant future career. She had always idealized and admired him, and there was no place for parental criticism and admonition. Porfiry Petrovich, the judicial investigator, called Raskolnikov proud, imperious, and impatient. This discerning investigator saw clearly these traits in Raskolnikov. He told him about them and considered them as one of the reasons for committing the murder. Once Porfiry Petrovich read an article written by Rodion Raskolnikov, where the young man speculated on an interesting subject. He wrote that there were two types of people, ordinary and extraordinary. Ordinary men have to live in submission, have no right to transgress the law, because, don't you see, they are ordinary. But extraordinary men have a right to commit any crime and to transgress the law in any way, because they are extraordinary. Raskolnikov wrote that all great well-known people had overstepped moral obstacles in a varying degree in order to create something new and useful for the mankind. The material, as Raskolnikov called ordinary people, could serve only to reproduce its kind, and sometimes extraordinary ones. Dostoevsky didn't know that in a few decades, Raskolnikov's idea would be developed by new philosophers and politicians and initiate emergence and rise of fascism. Porfiry Petrovich asked Raskolnikov a reasonable question. But tell me this, how do you distinguish those extraordinary people from the ordinary ones? Are there signs at their birth? If confusion arises and a member of one category imagines that he belongs to the other, begins to eliminate obstacles, Raskolnikov answered that such a mistake could arise only in the first category, that is, among the ordinary people. In other words, he meant that extraordinary people are never wrong. Raskolnikov's friend Dmitry Razumikhin, listening to this debate, cried that you, Raskolnikov, sanction bloodshed in the name of conscience. But that sanction of bloodshed by conscience is more terrible than the official, legal sanction of bloodshed. How did Raskolnikov come up with this idea? This idea can be born only in the soul of a materialist. A person who doesn't believe in God, who doesn't feel divine grace, love, or who does believe in God as Raskolnikov did, but doesn't consider all people as his brothers and sisters in the Lord. A materialist thinks that he lives the only life. Then he dies, and that is the end of everything. Or if there is something beyond death, no one knows what it is. And he is afraid to investigate it. A materialist goes to extremes in his perspective of the world. He insatiably tries to get all material pleasures hangs on to his life and is terrified to die. It is one extreme. Or he doesn't value his life and can commit a suicide if something goes wrong in his life. It is another extreme. Raskolnikov said, "No, life is given to me once, and I shall never have it again. I don't want to wait for the happiness of all. I want to live myself, or else better not to live at all." Raskolnikov assessed his life from the point of view which we can call all or nothing. It means we want the whole of something. If we get less, we want nothing of it. How did Raskolnikov consider the victim of his crime, Alyona Ivanovna, the old pawnbroker? He considered her as a disgusting person who did nothing useful for others, but made their life miserable, the life of her simpleton, Sister Elizaveta in particular. He thought that old woman deserved to be killed and robbed, and her money could be used for much nobler, higher purposes. Raskolnikov said to Sonya Marmeladova, "I've only killed a louse, Sonya, a useless, loathsome, harmful creature." But tough luck. Raskolnikov wanted to kill only Alyona Ivanovna, but he had to kill Lizaveta Ivanovna, her sister, too, as she had become a witness of his crime. He killed that kind and harmless person. Thus, a noble motive in a few seconds turned into a mean double murder. But who has the right to decide whether a person is a louse or not? Do we know what for a particular human being comes into the world? According to Raskolnikov's concept, extraordinary people know that. So one part of human beings, extraordinary, has the right to be the master of the fate of ordinary ones. No, brothers and sisters in the Lord, no commandment, "You shall love your neighbor as yourself," only masters and slaves. Raskolnikov revealed the true reason for the murder. "I wanted to find out whether I was a louse like everybody else or a man, whether I can step over barriers or not, whether I'm a trembling creature or whether I have the right." There is a good proverb in English: "Pride goes before a fall." Thus, we can come to the conclusion that Raskolnikov's pride incited him to kill.